and other representatives from the various states gathered here. Greetings to you all. At the outset, on behalf of all of us, let me place my sincere gratitude to Thiru M.K. Stalin, the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, for gathering us all here together today. The proposed delimitation of Lok Sabha constituencies is hanging over our heads like the sword of Damocles. Various reports indicate that the BJP-led union government is going ahead into the delimitation process without any consultation. This sudden move is not driven by any constitutional principle or any democratic imperative, but by narrow political interests. The delimitation process, if it is undertaken after the census, will lead to a large increase in the number of seats of northern states, while there will be a significant reduction in the representation of the southern states in parliament. This will suit the BJP as they hold greater influence in the north. If delimitation is carried out purely on the basis of population, then Kerala and other southern states will suffer, as we have been bringing down our population since 1973, when the previous delimitation was carried out, in which the number of seats in the Lok Sabha was reorganized. Our states are now said to be punished precisely for our sincere implementation of the National Population Policy of 1976. When a state faithfully implements a nationally recognized policy, it deserves special consideration for that very reason. Not only is this consideration being denied, but we are even being penalized for fulfilling our duty to the nation. This is the crux of the current issue. The National Population Policy of 1976 was not intended only for specific regions of the country. It was declared by the Union government as a policy for the entire nation. However, many states failed to implement it effectively. Our states, on the other hand, have implemented it commendably. The Union government has praised us time and again for our achievement. Yet the same Union government is now punishing us for having achieved the target and going beyond it. The approach seems to be, now you have a smaller population, so now you deserve lesser funds and lesser representation. This is deplorable. Our states, which have implemented the national population policy with dedication upholding the broader national interest, are already being punished in another way. This punishment is in the form of cutting short our share of taxes that is constitutionally due to us. Our decreasing population is being cited to justifying it. Kerala's share, which was 3.875% during the 10th Finance Commission, has now dwindled to a paltry 1.925% in the 15th Finance Commission. Effective implementation of population control measures invariably leads to rise in the public health spending. However, while devolving funds, no special consideration is given for the same. If our parliamentary representation is further reduced, while our share of the nation's wealth continues to decline, we will face an unprecedented situation in which both our rightful share of funds and our political voice to demand them diminish simultaneously. It is in the recognition of the gravity of this issue that we, that is Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Karnataka, Odisha, West Bengal and Punjab, are now uniting in protest. We are gathered here at the invitation of the Honorable Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Thiru M.K. Stalin, to mark the beginning of our coordinated resistance by forming a joint action committee. The Union government's actions, from fiscal policies to language policies to cultural policies to now even the fixation of representation, are destabilizing India's federal system and democratic framework. This cannot be allowed to pass. India's constitution identifies India as a union of states, which underlines our federal character. It strikes a balance between the union and the states. The current effort at delimitation disrupts this equilibrium, disproportionately empowering states that fail to implement national policies like population control. States that prioritize education, healthcare, and gender equity will be penalized for their progressive choices. This creates a perverse incentive, as states will be discouraged from investing in human development for fear of losing political representation. The Union government should examine whether this will guide the nation forward or drive us backwards. India's federal structure was designed to protect smaller communities and regional identities. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the chairman of the drafting committee of India's Constituent Assembly, warned against the tyranny of the majority, advocating for states' rights to balance central authority. Back in 1988, the Sarkaria Commission reinforced this, stating that federalism is not a mere administrative arrangement, but a fundamental feature of the Constitution. Delimitation that ignores this principle risks reviving colonial era centralization, while diverse voices were subsumed under majoritarian agendas. The end result was that the Indian people united against our colonizers and drove them out of the country. Those at the helm of affairs today should take due note of our history and what it teaches us. India's federal structure is a cornerstone of our democracy, designed to accommodate the country's vast mosaic of cultures, languages, and regional identities. The diversity that defines India is not just a demographic statistic. It is the bedrock upon which our unity is founded. A robust federal system ensures that every region, with its unique history, language, and cultural heritage, has a voice in the national dialogue. The current process of delimitation poses a serious threat to the preservation of our rich cultural and linguistic diversities as well. Redrawing constituencies solely on the basis of population without accounting for these vital cultural and linguistic factors risks the possibility of marginalizing those regions that have long preserved their distinct identities. This is especially critical for our states, which not only contribute to the nation's demographic fabric, but also enrich its cultural landscape. The strength of India lies in its plurality. Our cultural and linguistic diversities are assets that strengthen our nation, enabling us to harness a wide range of perspectives and innovations. Kerala's Kudumbashree initiative, which empowered millions of women, and Tamil Nadu's midday meal scheme are state-specific innovations that became templates for the nation later on. Centralizing power will stifle such localized situations, which are crucial for addressing India's diversity. Cultural preservation and federalism are intertwined in the Indian experience underlines it. When smaller or less populous states lose political clout, their capacity to safeguard their cultural traditions diminishes. A homogenized parliament dominated by populous states could sideline regional priorities, eroding the pluralism envisioned by modern India's founders. A centralized process that ignores these factors not only dilutes regional voices but also threatens the balance that has allowed India to thrive as a united and diverse republic. The Union government must therefore engage in meaningful dialogue with the states and incorporate our considerations so as to safeguard states' interest before going ahead with the delimitation process. Reducing the representation of our states will create a political and regional imbalance and undermine the diversity of our pluralistic democracy. This must not happen. Kerala's stance on this matter is unequivocal. The Union government's approach, which violates federal principles and seeks to curtail the representation of certain states for political reasons, is unacceptable. The decision on going ahead with the delimitation process must be made only through a consensus. Article 82 of the Indian Constitution mandates the delimitation of parliamentary seats after every census. It was in exercise of this provision that the Lok Sabha strength was increased over the years from 489 to 543. However, delimitations have not been conducted as required by the Constitution after every census. Decisions to conduct or delay delimitation have been made solely on the basis of the transient political convenience of those in power. The 42nd Constitutional Amendment of 1976 froze delimitation until after the first census post-2000. During this period, despite the implementation of the National Population Policy, population disparities persisted in the country, leading to the 84th Constitutional Amendment, which extended the delimitation phase until after the first census post-2026. The 2021 census has not yet been conducted, and the next census is due in 2031. However, the Union government appears to be pushing the delimitation even before that. In the 2011 census, Kerala's population growth was a mere 4.92% compared to the national average of 17.7% between 2001 and 2011. As our states have recorded population growth rates below the national average during this period. The last reorganization of seats in the Lok Sabha was conducted in 1973, based on the 1971 census. At that time, Kerala accounted for 3.89% of India's population. However, due to the effective implementation of the National Population Policy over the next 4 decades, Kerala's share had shrunk to just 2.76% by 2011. If the delimitation exercise is carried out now, Kerala's reduced population will inevitably lead to fewer parliamentary seats. States being punished for successfully implementing population control policies is unconscionable. We are determined to resist this injustice. Federal principles and equitable representation must be upheld. While the political maneuvering behind the current delimitation effort is clear, it is imperative that the Union government also considers the broader implications for Indian federalism and the preservation of our cultural and linguistic diversities. Any action that undermines them will not only destabilize our political institutions but also weaken the very foundation of our democratic society. The Union government's arguments that our states will get additional seats on a pro rata basis cannot be taken at face value. The Union has not been able to clarify whether this pro rata distribution will be based on the current strength of parliamentary seats or on the basis of population figures. Therefore, the Union government should alleviate our fears. It is the Union's responsibility to refrain from unilateral measures and preserve the essence of democracy and federalism. We need to ensure that the delimitation exercise is carried out in such a way that our current proportional share of seats in the parliament is retained. This is the consensus that we all need to arrive at. I am sure that we will be able to do that, and that this meeting will serve as a strong foundation for the formation and functioning of the Joint Action Committee, which will take the steps forward in making our consensus upheld at the national level. Let me conclude by stating that federalism is not a gift from the Union, but a right of the states. Our collective resistance is not just about seats. It is a fight to preserve India's soul as a diverse and inclusive democracy. Thank you. And other representatives from the various states gathered here. Greetings to you all.